All right, folks, so yesterday we got some pretty big news for Last Epoch, and that is the fact that Last Epoch's endgame is going to be getting a facelift. So right now, your endgame is Monolith of Fate. That's their primary endgame, and it's fun, right? It's a good time, but it has received a lot of criticism, I agree with. So for those that don't understand what the Monolith of Fate is or how it works, essentially this is a randomized timeline endgame mode. You're given the choice of two timelines, which are just randomized maps with random modifiers. You choose one of the two maps, you go through, clear the map, complete the objective, you're kicked out, and then you choose another map, and this continues forever. And it increases in difficulty, it increases in magic find, you choose different modifiers begin to stack, and that's where a lot of the difficulty comes from. Now the problem here is that this mode scales to player level. So right out of the gate, you're going to be fighting things whatever level you are. So you never really feel like you're progressing. You don't feel like you have those milestones in front of you of, I finally got through the 55 island. Now I'm moving into the 62 island. And that's a problem that the players and the devs wanted to fix. So enter the Monolith of Fate 2.0. Now with the overhauled Monolith of Fate, players are going to have a much more interactive and deepened experience. So rather than just choosing between two maps and either repeating until you die or you're bored, you're actually going to be taken on a journey through these various timelines that begin at level 55 and they ramp up in difficulty using modifiers and zone levels. Now, these timelines are represented by these different islands from this screenshot. And I'm going to go ahead and assume there are multiple maps within each one, because based on this screenshot, you can see that this player has completed 64 echoes and conquered 2 timelines, which is pretty intense because on a simplified level, an echo represents a map. So they've completed 64 maps and worked through only 2 of the 7 timelines that are available. And this really just represents how dense that these islands or timelines can actually be. So there's just a lot of content in here that I think on the surface level, it looks like, oh, hey, I'm just going to go from island to island and it's going to be great. But I don't think that's necessarily it. I think there's a lot more here than meets the eye. So I want to talk about echoes a little bit because these can be confusing for people who have never played Last Epoch. So come with me, follow along, let me know in the comments below if I do not do a good job explaining this. So high overview, right? When you first enter a timeline, you're going to have a choice between 2 echoes. Each echo is going to have a modifier to make your life harder, and then it's going to have a reward modifier to obviously reward you for that difficulty modifier. So for instance, you could have something like all enemies will crit. However, you're going to get a plus 20% magic find bonus and experience gain bonus, something like that. Now these modifiers are only going to span across one map starting out. So whatever modifier you choose will only affect that one map. Once you complete that map, you'll get removed from it. You'll go back and choose another echo, another map, and you'll have to choose another modifier. But as you get deeper, these modifiers will begin to stack. So you'll have some that'll span across 1, 2, 4, 7 echoes. And next thing you know, you're gonna have all of these modifiers stacked up that are gonna start playing off of each other and make your life much, much, much harder. So they did give us a new screenshot of this improved interface, right? This shows an example of the modifiers that you're going to see. This one on the right-hand side spans across 4 echoes. We just talked about that, right? So 4 maps, and it's going to boost rare enemies' speed and crit chance until you get near them. And you're going to get, in exchange for this, a 13% increase to magic find and a 9% increase to experience gain. Now this also shows a quest echo. Now quest echoes are an echo that will guide the player through a map that'll actually finish out that timeline, right? And then lead them onto a new island with new timelines to conquer. So you're going to continuously do echoes until you see the quest echo. You do the quest echo, complete it, and it'll unlock your next thing. So it's kind of a cool little system where you can kind of repetitiously work through that island, build up your character, earn more levels, get gear, and then hopefully there's something built into the system where it starts to recognize that. Maybe it's based off like a, hidden eye level or a power level or something, and it goes, okay, you're getting a little bit closer to being able to conquer this, so let me go ahead, give you the quest echo, you can go complete that, and then move into the next island to keep things interesting, right? Nothing's worse than being just either crazy powerful and then running through an island trying to farm out a quest echo when it's not challenging, it's not fun, it's not exciting. So I do hope there is a little bit of back end kind of played into that. So we've talked about choosing a timeline. So what happens when you conquer one, right? What happens when you beat a timeline? Well, in the old system, nothing happens other than you get a chest full of some random loot. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But in this new one, you're actually given 3 randomly rolled blessings to choose from. Now, each one of these blessings is going to give you a permanent buff that applies both inside and outside the monolith. So endgame isn't necessarily only affecting endgame, which is really cool. And we got an example of a blessing in that first screenshot, and it's a blessing that increases unique drop chance. Now, the interesting part of this is that these are randomly rolled, right? Meaning you can get god rolls of these blessings, which is pretty good because, I mean, it adds another thing to chase for those high intensity players, right? Those folks who play this game and this game alone, play it all day, 8, 12 hours at a time, they need those things to chase. They don't want to run out of content, so having things like this where they can chase after god roll blessings, god roll gear, the new tier 6 and tier 7 affixes, which we'll talk about in a second, but all of those things give a little bit more depth over the current endgame that we have today. Now, the last thing about blessings is they're actually unique to their timeline. So if you're looking for a specific one, you're going to have to run those certain islands to get it. You can also score some pretty badass uniques that are exclusive to timelines as well. So there's a lot of different targeted loot farming that you can do, which is kind of becoming like the new norm again. Before, it was people really wanted things to drop from everywhere. We want global drops. Global drops are great, not just in the last Epoch, but in multiple games. Now players are wanting, hey, I want my time to mean something, so let me do targeted loot farming again. Let me go to this one thing and farm this one thing out. And it's great. I think there should be both. I think there should be global drops plus targeted drops, and I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. So overall, I mean, this endgame system, guys, is far more complex and appealing than what we have today. And what we have today is the gameplay you've seen in the background this whole time. That's been running, and it's good, but not great, right? And with last Epoch, if you haven't noticed, they're really shooting for great on everything. So there are a few other kind of items that I wanted to cover that are coming with this patch. Now, I'm not going to do a big patch preview, but I do want to cover the patch once it comes out. So, but I did want to call these things out ahead of time. They're going to be adding in tier 6 and tier 7 affixes on gear, which is crazy because right now it goes up to tier 5 and you can craft tier 5 affixes and everything's great. Tier 6 and 7 are not able to be crafted, so you're gonna have to get lucky, find these ones out in the wild. And the cool thing is they're just insane. They can be very like build breaking, not game breaking, but really pushing the limits of builds and things like that. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and once again gives something for people to farm, and also provides some more of those oh shit moments where it's like, oh man, this is really cool, something just dropped and I'm pumped. That is what I think a lot of these games need. So this patch is also going to be adding in 3 new skills for the Acolyte: Bone Curse, Assemble Abomination for the Necromancer, and Dreadshade. We will also be seeing some brand new animations for the Sentinel class that I am just so excited for. My god, I'm excited for him because the Sentinel is one of my favorite classes, and it is extremely rough right now. It is very rough, it's very rigid, and it makes it very hard to showcase last Epoch using the Sentinel class to players who are more visually fixated, and it doesn't really demonstrate how good the game is because people are so drawn to the poor animation. So seeing those animations get improved is going to be massive for the game. So I will have a full patch overview once the patch actually drops. We can dive into the content and have a good time. But I want to know from you guys, what do you think of this new endgame mode? You know, traversing through the multiple timelines, going through the quest echoes, stacking up echo modifiers, having the blessings, running for blessings, trying to get the god roll ones that you really want, and really it just being a more in-depth and interactive experience. Is this something that you're looking for, or would you like to see something different? I definitely want to hear from you guys. Let's get talking in the comment section below. As always, this has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.